Rotterdam is choking. Hamburg is jammed. Antwerp has barges waiting 75 hours to dock. And almost nobody is saying out loud what's actually causing it. A war being fought 5,000 miles away by a country that has never aimed a single missile at any of them. The man in charge of that war is Mojtaba Khamenei. 46 years old, the son of the supreme leader America, killed on February 28, 2026. Within 48 hours of taking his father's job, Mojtaba did something no leader of any country had ever pulled off. He closed the Strait of Hormuz. What he didn't say out loud, and what almost nobody in Europe noticed, is that closing that strait would do something almost no missile could ever do. It would paralyze the German port of Hamburg. It would jam Antwerp's barge queue past 3 full days. It would strand 22,500 sailors inside the Persian Gulf. And it would put one of the world's largest shipping companies on track to lose $240 million every single month, without ever firing on a single one of them. We'll get to all of it. Hit subscribe and like before we go further, because what we're about to walk through is the playbook every adversary of the West is now studying. Here's the thing about the Strait of Hormuz. It's 24 miles wide at its narrowest point. Around 25% of the world's seaborne oil and 20% of its liquefied natural gas pass through it every single day. Before February 28th, an average of 3,000 vessels crossed it every month. By April 2026, that number had collapsed to 191. The same week Iran's Revolutionary Guard declared the strait closed, the Houthi militia in Yemen restarted its attacks on the Red Sea. So now, European ships have lost both of their fast lanes out of Asia. The Suez Canal, which normally carries the bulk of Asia to Europe container imports, is again being avoided. Vessels are taking the long way, around the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa. That detour adds 12 to 14 days to every voyage. Hundreds of millions of dollars in extra fuel. Tens of thousands of additional miles. And it's not just oil. Qatar Energy, the state company responsible for nearly a fifth of the entire global LNG supply, declared force majeure on all its shipments on March 4th and after Iranian attacks on its Ras Laffan facility. One declaration. 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas gone overnight. Europe gets between 12 and 14% of its LNG from Qatar. That number didn't drop. It vanished. And here's where Europe's ports start to break. Cargo from Asia is now arriving in Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Hamburg in massive bunched waves, out of schedule, off cycle, all at once. Container trade statistics shows the Asia to Europe trade imbalance widened to 3.3 to 1 by the end of 2025. For every 3 full containers arriving in Europe, only 1 heads back. Empty containers are piling up faster than ports can move them. As of January 2026, empty boxes now account for 42% of all 2 miles moved at sea. Before the pandemic, that number was 32%. Rotterdam, Europe's largest container facility, has had vessel waits hit 7 days. Hamburg's CEA terminal hit 89% yard utilization, what operators call critical. Antwerp has seen barge wait times stretch past 75 hours, the longest in years. On a single afternoon in March, 11 container ships sat anchored off the Dutch coast, unable to dock. Maersk, the largest container shipping company in the world, announced its TA5 transatlantic service would stop calling at Rotterdam entirely, sailing instead straight from Felixstowe in England to Hamburg in Germany, Europe's biggest container port. Skipped, and the Rhine River, the inland artery that feeds cargo from Rotterdam deep into Germany, dropped below the Kaub gauge, forcing barges to haul between 55 and 75% of normal load. Tanker freight from Rotterdam to Karlsruhe more than doubled. 34 euros per ton to 86 euros per ton in a matter of weeks. And then there are the carriers themselves. Hapag-Lloyd, The German shipping giant, Europe's #2 container company, is now losing $60 million every single week from the Hormuz situation alone. 4 of its vessels are still stranded inside the Persian Gulf. The original 6 are down to 4 because one finally transited the strait and one had its charter agreement expire while it sat at anchor. The company implemented a war risk surcharge of $3,500 per container starting March 2. Every one of those dollars eventually ends up paid by a European importer. Then, the insurance market broke entirely. Before February 28th, war risk premiums on a ship transiting Hormuz sat between 0.125% and 0.25% of the vessel's hull value. By the first week of March, premiums hit 2.5%. Some quotes from Lloyd's of London came in at 5 to 10%. David Osler, the finance editor at Lloyd's List, has been tracking the numbers. He says, for a very large crude carrier worth $100 million, the insurance bill alone can run several million dollars per single transit. For an entire week, through March 8th, the major protection and indemnity clubs, Guard, Scold, and North Standard, issued formal cancellation notices for the Persian Gulf. The strait wasn't physically blocked. It was uninsurable. This is what modern economic warfare actually looks like. It isn't tariffs. It isn't sanctions. It isn't bombs landing on a factory floor. It's geography being weaponized. It's an adversary choosing a single choke point and making it more expensive to use than to abandon. And the damage doesn't land where the missiles land. It lands at a German container terminal 8,000 miles away, at a Dutch oil tanker waiting in queue off Fujairah, at a Belgian barge operator who can't even reach the dock. The Strait of Hormuz didn't close Europe's ports. It closed the conditions under which Europe's ports were profitable. On May 11th, Saudi Aramco's CEO Amin Nasser confirmed that more than 600 tankers are still stuck inside the Persian Gulf. Another 240 are waiting on the other side. President Trump has now paused the U.S. military escort program through the strait. Hapag-Lloyd, Maersk, and CMA-CGM are still refusing to send their ships through. And every container handled at Rotterdam this week is being handled under the weight of a war nobody at the port has any say in. The next time someone tells you Europe's port crisis is about strikes or weather or the Rhine running too low, remember this number: 600 tankers, 22,500 sailors, 0 missiles fired at Europe. That's modern economic warfare. The choke points aren't where the bombs are falling. They're where the bills are landing. Next case file drops Friday. Subscribe so you don't miss it.